Yo, what's going on guys? My name is Kevin, and in today's video, we're going to talk about if it is necessary to track your calories in order to make progress in the gym. Now, I spoke about this briefly in past videos, and honestly, it depends on a lot. It's not really just a yes or no answer. There's a lot at play when it comes to knowing if you should track your calories. Now the thing is, there's tracking calories and then there's tracking macros. Now macros are just macronutrients, so that's protein, fat, and carbs. So this is a little bit more specific, and it's more for people who are, I'd say, more intermediate or advanced, or people who are a lot more scientific about their fitness and want the best possible results possible. Now I've pretty much done everything under the sun. So I've tracked my calories before, I've tracked my macros before, and I've done no tracking at all. And what seemed to work the best for me is being as specific as possible and tracking all of my macronutrients. Now, do you have to do this? No, you really don't. Especially if you're just a beginner, I'd say focus on different things like trying to cut out junk food as much as you can, trying not to drink liquid calories, and trying not to snack on stuff. Stuff like that is much more important when you're just starting out. Also, it really depends on if you're cutting or bulking. Because if you're cutting, I definitely say you should at least try to track your calories. And if you want, you can try to track your macros as well. Or you guys can do what Jordan Sayat does. He's a fitness influencer / fitness enthusiast. And a strategy that he portrays to his clients and everyone who watches him is just to track your overall calories and your protein intake. And honestly, that's a really good strategy because your fat and carbs can fall into whatever they want, and you can focus on the more important stuff, which is your overall calories and your protein. So if you guys don't want to be super specific and track all of your macronutrients, you can do this as well. So shout out to Jordan Sayat for that strategy. So yeah, if you guys are cutting, it's very important in my opinion to track your calories because you really want to know if you're losing weight or not. And on top of tracking, I'd say it's good to weigh yourself daily and get your average weight loss per week just to see where you're going and if you're headed in the right direction. And it would also be good to take body measurements as well because sometimes you don't lose weight, but you do lose some body measurement, aka inches. And sometimes it's vice versa. Now if you're bulking, I'd say you can be a little bit more loose and you don't have to be as diligent when it comes to tracking because either way you're trying to gain weight, right? But still, it would really help if you did track. But upon both of these, if you haven't ever tracked and you're getting into fitness, I'd say you should definitely track for at least a couple weeks or a couple months just to get used to this and just to really learn macronutrients so that when you do decide it's time for you to just not track anymore, because obviously, we're not animals, we're not just going to track our whole lives. So when you do decide you don't want to track anymore, you'll have that prior experience of tracking, so it'll be a lot easier for you and you can be a lot more accurate without tracking in the first place. Now you guys might be thinking, Kevin, what if I'm going to be eating fast food today? Or what if I'm just going to go out with my friends? Well, luckily for you, most restaurants give their macro splits and the calories of the food that they create for you to eat as the consumer. But even if they don't, you guys can use MyFitnessPal and make your own meals out of whatever you eat. And you can just basically try to estimate as best as you can. Again, it's not the end of the world, but a good strategy I'd say is if you see a bunch of different listings, if you're cutting, pick the highest to be on the safe side. And if you're bulking, pick the lowest to be on the safe side. And when I say lowest and highest, I mean calorie wise. And just keep in mind, if you guys are going to track and you are going to use an app like MyFitnessPal, just realize that there's a lot of user submitted items and they're not always correct. So make sure you do your research and know exactly what you're adding before you actually add it and before you actually use that to track your calories and or macros. Alright, so we got that covered. Now let's say you're going to a family dinner, right? And you might not know what your family member is making or how much oil they use, etc., right? Again, just try your best to estimate based on MyFitnessPal and try to ask them like, did you use a lot of this? Or, did you use a lot of that? Or whatever. But ultimately, A good thing that I always say about fitness is that if you're gonna go out to eat with friends, or if you're eating with family, or if you're going to a family dinner, if you're going to some sort of event like a wedding or something like that, honestly, just try to enjoy yourself, and I'd say don't worry about it, whether you're cutting or bulking. Because at the end of the day, you know that right after that event happens or after you eat out, you're gonna go right back to your diet and you're gonna do what you need to do. So ultimately, it's not gonna matter and you're still gonna reach your goals regardless. Plus, if you're always strict with your diet, you're just gonna end up developing a food disorder.
Yes, I speak from experience, and I had one, and it's not pretty.
So, obviously, I always say that you guys should crush your goals, but there's no reason to rush anything in life. And it's also good to keep in mind that even if you do want to track your macros, right? So let's say you decide, okay, I'm gonna start tracking my macros. I'm gonna be as specific as possible because I want to try to get the best results. You have to also keep in mind that there is no perfect macro split. Some people like higher carbs and lower fat, and some people like higher fat and lower carbs. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
But you should definitely try to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's a pretty good strategy in my opinion. But besides that, whatever macro split you come up with is honestly just preference at that point. So now that I got all that covered, I just want to summarize what I went through when I first started my fitness journey. So when I first started, I definitely didn't want to track. Like honestly, I was feeling pretty lazy about it and I didn't know if I really wanted to just commit to it because at the time, I was in high school taking 7 classes and my stress level was already to the top. So I wasn't really thinking about tracking at that time, but I still gave it a shot and honestly, I don't regret it at all and honestly, I really never want to look back. Now that I have all this experience of tracking, I can safely not track and I'm sure I could still hit my goals. Now, was it necessary for me to track? Honestly, probably not, especially because I was a beginner. But the thing is, once you do start tracking, you realize how many unnecessary calories that you're consuming and how easily you could cut these calories out just because of how much you've been tracking and because tracking gave you that realization. And if you guys are wondering about micronutrients, honestly, there's no need to track any of those. Just make sure you have some decent variety in your diet. And honestly, just pop a multivitamin every day, once per day, and you should be fine. But yeah, guys, I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to say about tracking in this video. So to answer the question, is it necessary to track? No, especially as a beginner. As a beginner, you should focus on different things. But as you get more intermediate and more advanced, if you want to really keep progressing deeper, I'd say yes, it's pretty necessary to track. And I think everyone should at least track for a bit in their life just to have that experience. And just so when you do stop tracking and when you decide I don't want to track anymore, you have that experience and you can use that to your full advantage. But yeah, everyone, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. If you guys have any video suggestions or anything that you'd like to see, post it in the comments down below. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace!